Hey, this is Noah. Just in this video, I want to talk about paint, quantity and quality of paint that we offer here. All right, so let's got a few different rail cars. I want to show you a few different bridge decks to give you guys a couple of options of what you have to choose from. Let me turn the. Okay, here we have a 60-foot bridge deck, right? So a standard paint job. If you look at this deck, all you really see is this side piece is called the side sill, end sill. Then you also have underneath where it sits on, it kind of bellies down way underneath there. That's called the center sill. So a standard paint job, well, the standard quantity of paint is all we're doing is painting the side sill, because that's all you really see when it's a bridge is that side sill, is that bright yellow paint there. Okay, so that's as far as quantity goes. That's what we're charging you for, and that's about a foot tall. And this one is 60 foot long, so it'd be, if you wanted us to paint this bridge, this side sill, that's 60 square feet for this one side, 60 square feet for the other side, right over here. Okay, so 60 square feet on this side, 60 square feet on that side. So for 120 square feet, that's what we're painting. We're just painting that, and we're painting the other side. Generally, we will just paint this. We don't typically charge to paint the end sills. You don't really see that. And we will typically put a cover plate on there just to retain dirt. But we're charging you for is the side sill. Okay. Now the center sill, let me kind of show you. You can see that the paint here is not bad. It's not a bad paint already. So it's already decent paint. But generally, you know, it doesn't look all that pretty. It looks kind of like a rail car. So, but once we paint it, it looks a lot cleaner. Let me show you what the center sill looks like up underneath here. Right, so the center sill typically is like this, just like a grayish, light black kind of a color, and it's in great condition, right? So, and that's something you really don't see. You can see there's a bunch of cross members underneath there. So we typically don't paint that. If you want us to paint that, we can, but your square footage goes way up. Okay, so look at the square footage of your quote to see how many square feet we're charging you for. Let me give you an example over here. So this is a bridge that, this bridge is 40 foot long, 2 foot tall. So 40 foot long, 2 foot tall. Let's just assume that this is a bridge we extended out. So let's just assume that this extension is here. We're just talking about just this side sill over here. So if we're going to paint this without the extensions, 2 foot tall, 40 foot long, that's 80 square feet. 80 square feet times 2 sides, that's 160 square feet of paint that we're painting. So if you had a quantity on a 40-foot deck of 160 square feet, that means all we're doing is painting this. Okay, we're not painting the bottom. We will paint the top. We won't charge you to paint the top, you know, the top flange, but generally this is what you're paying for, is just to paint the side sill. Okay. Now we have a few different other options. Sometimes clients want the whole entire thing repainted, like this one over here. You can see this particular client wanted everything repainted, so our quantity went way up. Okay, so instead of 160 square feet, it was, you know, probably double that. That's a lot of square footage to do that much painting. Okay. As soon as he's done over there, we have a bridge that I want to show you as well over there that we're working on with the guardrails. Now let's jump into talking about quality of paint. Okay, so quantity versus quality. Now, quality of paint, we have a few different choices. Generally let me start at the very top. The best paint job. The best paint job is going to be sandblasting. So we sandblast. We do a commercial blast. We sandblast it. We remove all the loose stuff off of there. We sandblast it. Then we prime it. We prime it with Sherwin-Williams Macropoxy, and then we top coat it. We top coat it with Sherwin-Williams Macrocril. I'm sorry, SherCryl. Okay. So that's the 3 processes that we have. Let me go show you what the difference is. Let me go to a different area. Okay, here we are, another part of our yard. This is a great example of Macropoxy versus the SherCryl top coat. So top coat versus just primer. This is our typical boxcar brown. Both of these have been painted probably maybe 5 years ago or so. They were the identical color. Whenever we freshly paint them, they look identical. The primer only, it chalks and it gets kind of whitish, right? So if you look at it, it has, you know, this kind of wipes off on your fingers, right? It gets kind of chalky. Now, Sherwin-Williams says that it does not affect the performance of the paint. That paint is perfectly fine, but it does chalk up and it does kind of get a whitish color to it. Whereas the SherCryl, the top coat, stays, you know, this nice, well, my fingers are all chalky now. Let me get my other, on my hands. So it stays this nice color here, so it doesn't lose its sheen. Okay, so if you just want us to primer your bridge, that's what it's going to look like. And no matter what color you choose, it's going to chalk and it's going to look like that. It does not affect the performance, but it does change the color, whereas the top coat will stay looking like that. Okay, so you have a choice. We don't have the top coat, but that is an option we have if you want the paint color to last longer. And it'll chalk within maybe 2 years. It'll look like that. Okay, maybe even a year, but it will eventually look like that. It'll chalk up, even if you use a darker color. You can see this is actually this is what the Macropoxy looks like over here. It's a oil-based, it's a epoxy paint versus these are a water-based top coat. Okay, so so that's your choices: primer only or top coat. Now, when it comes to blasting, if you want the best paint, you would have us do a sandblast, primer, top coat. If you want to save a little bit of money, you'll do just sandblast and primer. Primer by far is more important than top coat. If you really wanted to, you could have a sandblast and just top coat. We don't recommend that because you don't get any protection of the metal. The primer protects the metal. The top coat just makes it look pretty. Okay, we have done that for different events that you know, it's gonna be a temporary bridge. They just want a top coat. Cool, we can just do a top coat. It's not gonna last very long. We're gonna have to re-sandblast it once we get it back. But that is an option. So sandblast and top coat, sandblast primer. That's a pretty affordable way to do it. If you still want to save a little bit more money, instead of doing sandblast, we can do just a mechanical blast. Let me kind of show you what that's going to look like. Okay, here we have some cut down sections of rail car here. Now, if you want to save money, we can do a mechanical wire wheel. So instead of sandblasting, because sandblasting takes a while, takes big equipment. You can see, you know, that's our sandblast air compressor, and our blast pot is inside that cabinet. Let me show you that. All right, that's our diesel powered air compressor, and this is our sandblast contraption here that we made. So we use sand. We use a big blast pot. So it's a bit labor intensive for us to take this out and to sandblast everything, and then get ready for priming. Okay. Now typically whenever we well, let me get to that bridge a little bit later. Let me go back over here. So if you wanted to save some money and if you don't have a budget for paint, have us do just a mechanical wire wheel. We'll take an actual wire wheel and we'll just knock all the loose stuff off, and then we'll put a primer on that. That's going to be your least expensive paint job, is just wire wheel and primer. We can also put a top coat on there, but that does add a little bit more cost. So the best paint is sandblast, primer, top coat. The least expensive is just a wire wheel and primer. Okay, the choice is entirely yours. Now let's go back to quantity now. Now that it's kind of quiet, let me go back to this bridge over here. Let's talk about quantity. All right, so here we have this bridge deck we're getting ready to sandblast and paint. Okay, so this particular bridge, we're doing the best paint job, but our standard so high quality standard quantity. So on this one, what we're going to do, this is 54 foot long, so it's 108, and that's only 1 foot tall. So 54 foot on this side, 54 foot on that side. So we're charging 108 square feet of paint, okay? And then we're with the guardrail. So guardrail, we charge by linear feet. So guardrail, since this is 54 long, that's 108 linear feet of guardrail, 108 square feet of paint, okay? So what does that include? So that means we're gonna paint from here all the way up just to there. That's what we're painting here. And then we're gonna paint the guardrails, both sides of the guardrail, okay? So 108 feet does not include the deck. It does not include painting the center sill. Now here on this one, we did add some new steel. So if we add any new steel, we cut this car down to 54 feet. We'll go ahead and paint this. We'll sandblast and paint this. But generally, we're not painting anything underneath here. And you can see, actually, this one's kind of a yellowy color. And the paint's still in great shape. Even when we go to sandblast, this paint just sticks really well, even up high. You know, it's a really good paint. So actually, this one has, you can see it has some chips up there. But generally, we're not painting the underside of this. Okay, we're painting 108 square feet, which is this. Now, so whenever you're looking at the bridge, whenever it's installed, you really don't see this up underneath here, right? You don't see that part. But if you want us to paint that, we can. Just let us know, and we'll adjust our quote, and we'll add more square footage to the quote. Now, sometimes what we'll do, instead of putting, so this particular bridge is gonna get sandblasted, primer, top coat, all the way, you know, well, this entire side sill and the guardrails, primer, sandblast, primer, top coat. Now, what we can do, sometimes what we do is we'll sandblast this, and we'll just do a primer underneath here, because if this chalks, it really doesn't make that big of a difference. But if you want us to top coat that, we can as well. We just need to know, do you want the entire bridge top coated and primed and blasted, or just the sides? Standard quantity is just the side. And then even like, you know, this bridge is 9 foot wide, 54 foot long. So that alone is, you know, 500 square feet or so of paint, just to paint the deck. 500, then the bottom, that's another 500 square feet or so of paint. That's over 1,000 square feet, where on our quote, we only have 108 square feet of paint. So, well, generally on the deck, we would use a different kind of paint. And then on the deck, what we generally do, these had chalk tracks on them. So what we'll generally do is you can see we grind that down. There used to be a channel that sat here, went all the way down. We'll just grind this down. So our goal is no tire punctures. So so like this is, we're gonna leave here. We're just concerned about just making sure no tires are gonna get punctured. But that's it, that's gonna stay, And then we'll leave that, you can see it like right over there, there's a little piece sticking up, that's gonna stay. You can see it's a kind of a cool cart we have over there that we use over here. So this is the cart that we have. It's a kind of a cool cart that we use to just go through the entire deck and just try to grind everything, not flush. We just don't want any punctured tires. That's what we're shooting for, no punctured tires. Like that plate there, that's probably 3/4 inches tall. But we would leave it on there because it's not going to puncture any tires, and so it'll be sufficient. But if you want your deck completely clean, then we need to add more labor to get it completely clean. Okay, so yeah, this would be all sandblasted and painted on the top. But generally, whenever we're painting this, we're going to sandblast and paint, and we'll just stop somewhere, you know, somewhere inside. Well, there's no shadow. We'll stop somewhere like right over here. We'll just paint up to that point, and we typically don't tape it off or anything. We just if we get some overspray over here, it's not that big of a deal, because eventually this is going to get the deck gets all dirty anyhow. So if you wanted the deck painted, we do have another product called AS250, made by American Safety. That's an anti-slip coating. We can use that as well. It typically looks like asphalt. It's really thick and aggressive. So that's it. Any questions? Let me know.